Good morning to one and all present here. It is a privilege for me to present welcome address of the inauguration of the RIT structure. First of all, I extend a warm welcome to the chief guest of today's function, Engineer
Thank
Ramanan.
you. Thanks a lot. And it's a great pleasure to meet students and the faculties.
Pansons Corporation, Dubai. He is a person with rich professional experience. It is fun to have this and listen to him on behalf of everyone present here. I welcome you, sir.
Thanks once again. Yeah.
I really thank our beloved principal, Dr. L. Ganesan, and our vice principal, Dr. S. Rajakarunakaran, who always have been a great form of support and motivation for organizing this session. I also welcome Mr. S. Dharman, our HOD, whose valuable suggestions helped us a lot in organizing this function. All the members and all students of Civil Engineering Department. I'm sure you will benefit from today's guest lecture. And I wish you all the success for your career. Once again, I welcome all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I invite Mr. G. Karthikeyan, Assistant Professor, Civil Department, to present the annual plan of RIT Structa and the ICA Student Chapter.
Good morning to one and all present here. On behalf of Department of Civil Engineering, RIT Structa and ICA Student Chapter, I would like to read the annual plan for this academic year 2021 and 2022. So in this month, in association with RIT Structa, we are going to organize the event Statement Makers, a debate event which is planned on this September month. And in the month of November, we are going to organize technical events with the help of students and then faculty members. We are going to conduct. In addition, through RIT ICA student chapter, September month, we have planned to conduct technical webinar with the help of guest lecture from the scientist CSIR Sikri Karakudi. And in the month of October, we have planned to conduct the event group discussion on technical topics by the students. And also, we have planned to conduct unanimously approved value added course on project planning and management using Primavera and quality assurance and quality control in construction for third year and final year students for this semester. For the next semester, we have planned to visit industrial visits and site visits, and also we have planned to conduct the workshop and the international conferences and technical events more. I hope, I assure that through this association and ICA student chapter, so our students will benefit for the technical knowledge, and also they will improve technical knowledge and the presentation skills. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Let me introduce our chief guest. Respected luminaries, esteemed chief guest, cherished faculty members, and my dear students. A very good morning to one and all present here. On behalf of RIT Structa and ICA Student Chapter, I am indeed privileged to welcome our eminent chief guest, Engineer Shriram Ramanan, Quantity Surveyor, Parsons Corporation, Dubai, who has accepted our invitation with extreme gratification. A very warm welcome to you, sir. Engineer Shriram Ramanan is graduated from MIIQS Engineering College. Now he is a chartered quantity surveyor working in Parsons Corporation with more than a decade of experience across India and the Middle Eastern region in various verticals like industries, airports, high-rise towers, and infrastructure projects. He is an active member in various organizations like member of Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors, member of Indian Institute of Quantity Surveyors, committee member of MIIQS CEP workshops, claims expert and dispute resolution enthusiast. We are honored by your presence on this special occasion, sir. I thank the management for giving me this opportunity to welcome our chief guest, and I kindly request the student to make this session more effective. Thank you. A single conversation with a wise man is better than 10 years of study. Now, let us have the pleasure of listening to our honorable chief guest. Please, sir.
Sir, please unmute yourself.
Am I audible now?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. First, thank you for your wonderful introduction. First, I would like to thank the faculties and senior members in the college teaching organization who have given me this platform to interact with students. It has always been a great pleasure for me to interact with students. So, yeah, shall we move on to the presentation now?
Yes, sir. I'll share my screen now.
Yeah. And today we are going to talk about an overview of quantity surveying, how the profession of quantity surveying works in the industry. So, can we move on to the next slide, Lydia?
Yes.
Yeah. Today is the agenda, what we are going to discuss. This is the agenda. I mean, we'll start with the introduction and we will talk about how engineering curriculum covers quantity surveying in a nutshell. And then we will move on to the role of quantity surveyor, what is being expected in the industry, and what are the qualification and requirements for a student or a fresher to be in that level to achieve great heights in their career. So then we will discuss on some general topics. So yeah, and as experts says, this world is for experts, not for generalists. So we have to develop our expertise in one or the other field to be surviving in the market for a longer run. So can we move on to the next slide, Lydia? Yeah, this is the objective set out by the university when a civil engineering graduate who's been studying in the curriculum for 4 years, when the candidate comes out of the engineering program, this is what the expectation which has been set out by the university, which clearly says, the engineering field meets the need of Indian and multinational companies. And it also expects the engineer to have a sound knowledge how to analyze the engineering problem. And this is the very, personally, I feel so satisfied after seeing this objective, which promotes lifelong learning as a process. As a student, when I was a student, I thought that when after acquiring a civil engineering degree, I don't have to study further. I don't have to go into academics again. I don't have to read through any articles or anything. I have to focus on my career and things will fall in place. This was what my thought when I was a student. Now, after being in the industry for a good 10 years, I thought every day is a learning. I at least learn an hour each day, which are related to my profession. So I expect all the students at least to start the life to be, prepared for the lifelong learning process, which will give greater benefits in the run. Next slide, please, Lydia. Yeah, these are the program of outcomes, what the civil engineering course is being, this is how the course is being formulated. And again, it says the candidate will be able to have a self-education after the completion of this course. So from this, we can clearly understand whatever the industry needs, the academic is not able to teach or spoon feed everything to the students. The students have to go to the industry, they have to self-educate themselves. The engineering course is preparing themselves to have that kind of self-education which are required. So yeah, next. And this is the engineering curriculum. So please don't worry, I will not teach. There are better experts for teaching the quantity surveying and estimation techniques, which are required for academic purpose. So I request students not to, feel that this guy is going to give another lecture. So this is not a lecture, and I just want to highlight what are the outcomes which are required by going through that particular paper in a course of the engineering study. Like the engineering curriculum clearly set out some of the requirements, like the candidate must be able to do the estimation for buildings and understand the specification principles, report preparation, so on so. But one thing which I would like to highlight here is when it comes to the contract, the engineering curriculum clearly says like drafting the contract and documentation based on IBRD and most standard bidding documents. This IBRD, what I feel it is like a broad spectrum. It is, I could even say it is very vague. IBRD, FIDIC has a contract for IBRD, which IBRD is basically the contract which are being funded by the World Bank. So IBRD contract, it can be a FIDIC, it can be an NEC contract, it can be a different sort of contract, which we will discuss in later. Why I'm putting this slide is, as everyone would agree, even the faculties would agree, there is a large gap between what is being taught in the curriculum and what is being expected in the industry for being a professional quantity surveyor. So even in this session, I will do my justice to bridge the gap. I will give the guidance for the students, the young generation, what is being expected in this profession. As I said in the start of my presentation, everything cannot be spoon-fed through academics in college. We have to prepare ourselves for self-educating and for lifelong learning. That is the only key for the success. So we'll move on to the presentation. And is by any chance, can I interact with students, organizers?
Yes, sir. I hope it is.
Yeah, I would like to have some volunteers from students, and I would like to know what they think by reading the term quantity surveying, what comes to them first in their mind. So,
They are
any
hearing
volunteers?
through speakers. They
Okay,
will share their views in chat box. I hope.
chat box. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, anybody who has an opinion about what makes them, what is the term that defines quantity surveying, what is the thing that comes first in their mind?
Mic illa, sir.
So yes, yeah, we'll.
Students, you can give your views in the chat box.
No, I assume nobody is going to judge us because even I'm learning every day. So whatever you are going to say, it's for a purpose of discussion. So don't be thinking like people are judging by whatever we are saying. It's nothing like that. So you can feel free to have your comments and share your comments. When you have any doubts during the course of presentation, you can stop me at any time. I will do justice for your queries and clarifications. I think as I'm attending through phone call, I may not be able to look at the chat boxes. So, yeah.
Yes, sir. One student has answered to estimate the material quantity required.
Yeah, brilliant. I could see Meena. Meena, you have done a wonderful job. Brilliant. Your answer is just perfect. Yeah. So without wasting much time, we'll go into the presentation again. Even people in the industry think that quantity surveying is an act of doing the quantity takeoffs. I would say yes, it is a part. No, the profession demands doing the quantity takeoffs, but it's just 1% when you grow up in the ladder of your career. So it is not completely taking off the quantities, and yeah, people think that it is just performing rate analysis. I would say yeah, the part of profession demands doing the rate analysis. Like final year students might have studied in their estimation and estimation curriculum how to do a rate analysis. You get the number of resources, you analyze the circumstances, and you perform the rate analysis. But it is not the complete scope what the profession demands. Yes, it has a part in it. As I'm saying, when you grow up the ladder, it will not be even your day-to-day activity. So, yeah, again, people are thinking even in the industry, quantity surveying is just the calculation of resources required to complete the project, what amount of steel, what amount of shuttering. It's not just that. It has even broader spectrum, which is required to be a successful quantity surveyor. And again, people think that whenever there is an estimation of the project kicks off, that's where the role of quantity surveyor. People thinks that quantity surveyors majorly do the cost estimation. They will arrive at a figure, and within that figure, the project gets completed. It is not just that. It is a part of quantity surveying, but it is not completely that. So these are the major thought process what comes to anybody's mind when we say about quantity surveying. But in my opinion, I would say quantity surveying is a profession which requires a slight knowledge on even the local legislation, like local laws. You have to be aware of what is happening around the world. You have to have a knowledge of what Commercial Transaction Act says, what Arbitration Act says, what construction. There are some specific rules and regulations set out in each country. We have to be aware of at least. No, we have to have some sort of guidance. I mean, ideas on those legislations. And quantity surveying is also a profession which requires administration of contracts. It's more like performing a commercial management from the start of the project and even after the completion of the project. And I can clearly see that this guy is talking some nonsense ideas, because our curriculum doesn't teach all this. So these terminologies are very new to us. So what does a contract means? What is a commercial management? And what is administering the contract? All these terminologies. Are you up and ready to see in the next slides what these terminologies mean? So we'll go into the next slide. Yeah, I mean, these are the stages of a project. Anybody, from a construction background, even from not from a construction background, will be having a good ideology of what is happening around this. What are the stages of a construction project? First, any project would start with the design stage, and then it will move on to the construction phase. And then the third one is the operational phase, which, I probably assume that the final year students would be more aware of the operational phase. I believe there are some subjects related to building services and stuffs, facility management. So this is related to that operational phase. But doing a contract administration on these three stages of the contract is entirely different, which our curriculum is not giving complete guidance. We have to study ourselves. We have to be up and ready for learning on our own. So what is a design phase? Can anybody tell what is the design phase means? What does that comes to their mind when we say a design?
You can answer this question in your chat box. What is design?
Preparation of Shalini, preparation of plan of the building. Yeah, very good, Shalini. This is something similar to it. Again, it's not the complete thing, but it is something similar to it. Thank you very much for answering this. Basically, a design phase. Madam, can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah, it starts with the feasibility study. Now, what amount of reinforcement required? Yes, Meena Bharti. Yes, very good, Meena. But yeah, it is having an ideology of what would be the cost. We have to come through it, but these are bits and pieces of details. We have to combine the data from the beginning and till the what would be the cost, what would be the repercussions of building that such kind of facility. So I'll come to that. Yeah, it starts a design phase of any project starts with the feasibility study. What does a feasibility study means? A client has a budget of $100 million and he want to build an airport. Now, a plan or drawing produced to show the look and function of works building arrangement. Yeah, it is something of that sort. Not even if you're building hundreds of residential plots across a building, one building will not be identical to the other. There would be different challenges. There would be new challenges on each and every block of that particular facility. So, yeah, basically a design is not a copy paste from one building to other building. It works in a different way in the industry. Yeah, let's start with the feasibility study. As I was saying, a client has a budget of $100 million. He wants to build an airport in the middle of a city. Now, what are the criteria that we are going to look into it? First thing that comes into the mind of any construction professional would be either is there any ample space for building that particular kind of infrastructure in it. So yes, if the answer is yes, then the team will move on to the next thing. Is $100 million sufficient for building that particular airport? The answer would probably no. For building a large scope of infrastructure project, $100 million would be nothing. So if for any company, suppose if my company is getting engaged for that particular kind of work for feasibility analysis, I may not be able to go and tell the client openly that your $100 million will not be sufficient for building the airport. So what we would term that we would like to coin the terminology in a different way. We will do the feasibility analysis and we will say this budget what we have provided is not sufficient to build that particular kind of development. We would ask the question if the client has any budget which he thinks he can get from the government or he can get from any other organization, any banks or anyone. If we feel that particular kind of budget, $100 million or $1 billion, which is sufficient for building that particular project, then we will move on to the next stage. And any person who is listening to the presentation will have a question: how does anybody know that $100 million is sufficient or it is not sufficient? $1 billion is sufficient for building that project. Now, it comes by experience, and all the companies who are maintaining a database, like when we complete a project, we will have all the data recorded in a server or in a system where we can retrieve these kind of details. Like when a company has completed a $1 billion airport project, they kind of know what are the challenges in the project, what is this area that has been provided for that particular project, and what is the cost involved, what are the other activities that they have to consider. So all these things we have to study during the feasibility stage of a project. Where you get an empty plot, we have to analyze what sort of buildings that are most likely to suit that particular circumstances. Like I'll put a different scenario. You have a plot and which is like a 1 acre of plot, and the client wants to build a shopping mall. It can be done in many ways. Shopping mall can go vertical high-rise building, and it can be spread across in a landscape. You have one floor of shopping mall like Dubai Mall, which is the largest mall in the world. So we have one floor which caters all the facility which are required for the shopping mall. or you can do it as a vertical building. So feasibility study is, finding the scope and understanding the scope of what client requires, and putting your ideologies and thought process to that scope. And when this feasibility study is done, the project then moves on to the schematic design. For any builder, any building project, it is not a simple process of construction where I want to build a home. I call some engineers and they draw some sketches. If I feel satisfied, I go on with the construction. It is not that. For complex construction, it involves complex process. As I said in the presentation, if you have 100 blocks in a building, 100 blocks will not be having a identical design. Each block is having a different challenges. The ground condition would be different. If you have a 10-acre plot, it would be different. So we have to take all those scenarios in consideration, and the design will be developed from that. So a schematic design is nothing but like in a design and build project. There are various type of contracts, which I think it would be much more detailed for the students, but still I would like to say, like, there are different kind of contracts available. Like, one is design and build, where the contractor, he himself designs and builds the project, like EPC facility. The client will give the requirement, like you have to build 100 million megawatt power plant. He will not say anything else, like I need a thermal cooling facility here, I need a tower station here, I need a office block here. There will not be any requirement as such. The obligation is to build a 100 megawatt power plant, on which the contractor has to develop his own design in considering all the circumstances. There are other kind of projects, like if you are building a high-rise residential tower where the client exactly knows what he requires, he can provide you some sort of designs or some sort of already developed designs. So these kind of design are getting developed in the schematic design stage. Am I clear? Do you have any doubts during this until this level? Shall we proceed further? Yeah, great. Then the project will automatically move on to the design development phase, where, as some students said, preparing the plan, doing the estimation of the project, all these sort of things happens. When detailed drawings are being developed, for all these process, experts are required. A client may not be from a construction background. He may not know anything about a construction, where he just have the capacity to build that facility. So it is not necessarily, a client is also should be a construction professional. It's nothing like that. So in the design development phase, as I mean to say, for all these stages, experts are required, like cost consultant is required, designers are required, architectural team is required to, it's a combined process of teamwork. So I wish students should also develop their quality in working as a team. It's, as construction, as you all are aware, it's not a one-man show. There are a lot of involvements required across the team. So what is the involvement? As we are talking about quantity surveying, it's, students might feel like this is some sort of deviation from the topic. And what is the involvement of a quantity surveyor during all these phases? It's simple. Any decision will be taken, as far as I've seen in my experience, most of the decisions are taken based on the cost involved. If a client has 100 million and he wants to build a project which costs 80 million, and he would definitely, from the first meeting itself, you are aware that your project is on. You can go ahead and build the project. But when there is shortage of fund, that's where the profession of quantity surveying comes into picture. So during the feasibility study, as based on your data, you will analyze the cost. That will be like for 1 square meter of building, what would be the cost? If you're going to build a shopping mall, let's say like $1,000 for per square meter would be the cost of approximate a shopping mall which the client wants to build. Then you can calculate what would be this area of that particular shopping mall, and you can come to a ballpark figure, which is not a accurate estimate. It's a ballpark figure. For that level of detail, that would be the level of estimate that you can provide. So when the client feels that he has a sufficient budget, then the project moves on to the next stage, where the schematic design are developed. That skeleton will be built, and the exact area, what would be the infrastructure facility, how the people are going to come into the shopping mall, and how they are going to exit, what sort of parking spaces are we going to provide, what would be the restaurant area, what would be the area of entertainments, what would be the area of kids play. Everything has a different cost. You cannot build a cinema area as in the same cost of an kids entertainment area. It's different. So if you get to know all these details, then your estimate would be a bit more detailed. At the design development stage, where the 100% design development is achieved, you know exactly what is going to come, where is happening, what is happening, what is going to happen where. Then you can come to a more or less fair amount of estimate. And what is the role of quantity surveying during these phases? As I was saying, the decisions would be made based mostly on the commercial aspect. If the client has a budget and he can able to afford it, then the project will run. Otherwise, you have to redesign. You have to redesign the projects in a way that you have to match the client requirement within the budget allocated. And a role of a quantity surveyor doesn't stop there. You have to award the contract for a particular contract. When you are tendering, when you are inviting tenders for a project, suppose assume that you are working for a client, you will ask 10 contractors to submit their bid, and based on your design and details what you have provided, 10 companies will price 10 different way, 10 different amount. So from that we have, how will you select one particular contractor who is capable of completing this project? So can we move on to next slide, please? Yeah. Basically, we would call this as a procurement and tendering process. What does a procurement involves? Procurement is not just tendering is a part of procurement, but it is not completely, the full obligation of a quantity survey. What is a procurement means? Procurement is something, what form of contract that you're going to select for that particular project. Aside what type of procurement method that you're going to, that will be suitable for that client and suitable for that specific requirement. As I was saying, like for a power plant, when the client knows nothing about it, suppose for a government which intends to build a power plant, the government doesn't know where you are going to place that facility, where you have to have the car park for the staff who are going to work in the power plant, and where is your chiller plant come, how do you transport your coal, or if it is a nuclear power plant, where you have to position your nuclear reactor, and how would you take your drainage, the water cooling system in and out. The client doesn't have to know all this. The requirement is very clear. You need to build a 100 megawatt power plant. For these sort of projects, there is a contract form, a procurement form like EPC method, which is most suitable, where you give all the responsibilities to the contractor. The contractor will have his own expert team. He design it from the beginning, and he will hand over the key to you, which is called a turnkey contract. So at a turn of a key, you can run the facility. Now, there are different kind of procurement. As I was saying, like if you want to build a high-rise residential tower, where you exactly know what sort of units you are talking about, and what would be the revenue that you want to generate from that building. I need 100 blocks of houses, 1 2-bedroom, 3 3-bedroom, all the rest are like 4-bedroom villas, where the client has clear requirement. In that case, the client will design its the building based on their requirement. The contractor would just build it. So this form of contract arrangement would be more suitable for that particular procurement. Like we have other sort of contract formations, like build, operate, and transfer. As the recent chaos, what is going on all over India, the toll prices are increasing. Even after 20 years and 30 years of building roads, the government is still collecting the toll. So all these sort of things are going around the world. It's not just in India. These form of arrangements, contract arrangements, are called build, operate, and transfer. A contractor will design everything, he will build it, and he will operate for a certain duration, like 20 years or 30 years, and he will transfer that particular asset to the government. What is the advantage of it? The government doesn't need to spend anything upfront. The contractor will build the project on his own financial limitations, and at the end, this will become an asset for the government. So that's it. And there are various other forms of procurement which are highly famous, most suited in the European Union, like partnering. They call it as partnering form of procurement, where it's a pain and gain share methodology, where whatever the pain or gain which is involved in the contract, which will be shared equally between the contractor and the employer. The client, we usually in contractual terminology, we call them as employer. So don't mind if I say use the wording of employer or client. It basically the same. So what is the role of a quantity surveyor in that for advising a suitable procurement method? If you know the pros and cons of all these procurement method, and if you have an idea like what sort of procurement method would be suitable for that particular arrangement, then our main duty is to advise what would be the best possible procurement methodology. Then next comes to the type of contract. What does a type of contract means? A contract can be a lump sum contract where you have 1 crore rupee for building that particular facility. Any risk and benefit the contractor has to take within that particular amount. And the next form of contract would be remeasurable type of contracts, where you have fixed the rates for particular activities. You will, as and when the project goes, you remeasure everything, and your final account is settled based on the final remeasurement. And there are many other forms like target sum, fixed target sum, where it is mostly suitable for a design and build or EPC, like the turnkey contract, where you have allocated a budget, like $100 billion is the budget for that facility. The client and the contractor brainstorm. They will try to reduce the construction cost during the course of design or even during the construction. They will do the value engineering. I'll come to the terminology. What does value engineering means? They will do the value engineering during the pre and post construction stage, and they will try to achieve the quality in a less with a lesser budget. So the balance of the amount, what is budgeted, if you can able to complete the project within $900 billion, then the $100 billion will be shared among the contractor and the client, which is basically employer. So these sort of contracts is also available. And to administer the contract, there should be certain conditions. Who is going to be the employer, what sort of, who is the contractor, and when there is a delay, construction project, in my experience, no construction project starts at a time when it is supposed to start, and it will not end at the time when it's supposed to end. There will be always some amount of surprise. The project gets delayed, and there will be claims. So how would you administrate when there is a delay? What sort of protocols you have to follow? You have to give a notice, and within how many days of that event you have to give a notice, and those sort of protocols are required to be defined in some way. This is where the form of contract comes in place, which we call it as conditions of contract. These are basically, there are many forms of contract, which unfortunately our curriculum doesn't give an overview of what sort of contracts is majorly used in the different parts of world. Uh, while we were doing our engineering curriculum, we were most aware of this a specific type of contract where National Highway Authority uses. I don't think it is no more in use. The National Highway Authority of India has moved on to a different contracts like FIDIC, and I don't think they are using NEC in India. So FIDIC 19 and FIDIC has two versions of contract, like 87 and 99 release of versions. Like those those are basically called as form of contract, where these are standard form of contracts like FIDIC, NEC. NEC is very famous across Europe, UK, and they even use JCT. And there are some sort of bespoke contract which are basically required. If you go for oil and gas projects, there would be no standard. They will take the standard conditions from the particular contract, and they will minorly amend it so that it becomes a bespoke contract. So, what does that has to do with the form of procurement? We'll see all these later. And as a duty of quantity surveyor, we have to set out some sort of, as I was saying in the beginning, if you send out inquiries for 10 different contractors for pricing the particular project, 10 contractors will price it in 10 different ways. So we have to formalize one particular strategy, and you have to standardize the pricing or even the quantification method, how you are going to build the project. For that, these sort of method of measurements are being used, which is basically NRM, New Rules of Measurement, which is published by RICS, which is more suitable for building projects. And POMI, it's no longer in use, but still, in the industry, some people are very fond of using it. And the SESAM 3 and 4. SESAM 3 and 4 is basically for infrastructure projects. What does these guidelines says? This particularly says which entity where you have to price. When in the run of a construction project, you have preliminaries, what we call it as the company has to pay salaries for the staff, right? This basically comes as a part of preliminary. These standard forms of measurements clearly tell where the contractor has to price the preliminaries of his facility. There are much more, in a broader perspective, there are a lot of insurances required during the construction project. So this method of measurements will tell where you have to price all this, and like when we further extend what sort of the temporary facilities like formwork for a building, where you are going to price the formwork. Should we price it separately in a preliminary so that it is common for all the project, or you have to price it within the particular element, like you're casting a 300 mm thick slab? You should, it clearly tells where you should be pricing that formwork for that particular project, and how, if the depth of the concrete is not less than this much you have to price it differently. You have to measure it differently. So all this sort of standardization comes with this method of measurement. And after all this, a quantity surveyor must be having a sound knowledge of advising the client what would be the sort of the procurement method, the contract, what would be the suitable form of contract, what would be the suitable form of method of measurement that is more suitable for the intended type of building. And then we'll go on, if everything comes into a place, we manage to finalize everything. And when we get the tenders, from the contractor, then, we can make recommendation to award it to a suitable contractor. Now, I'm talking more about a contract. What does a contract means? Any idea, students? So what comes when you hear the terminology of contract? Are we running out of time?
No, sir. Okay. You have time up to 12:30. They will answer.
12:30. And another hour, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I will
Half an hour.
try to wind up. Yeah, half an hour. I'll try
Half
to
an
wind up.
hour.
Yeah. So, okay. Basically, a contract is an agreement between two parties. So, it can be a two-party agreement or a multi-party agreement. Generally, a contract is an agreement between the contractor and we call it as employer. In colloquial term, we can call it as a client, but a contractor and employer. So what are the basic requirements of a contract? A contract, can we go to the next slide, please?
Yes.
Yeah. And again, the most important thing is the contract has to be legally enforceable. So I'll explain you what is legally enforceable and what is not. What are the basic requirements of a contract? For any contract, there should be an offer. I cannot go and simply say in the market to a contractor, okay, you build this facility for me, I'll give you 100 million. It doesn't work that way in the normal construction practice. You send out, as a client, we send out the tender inquiries for various different contractors, and the contractor will price it, which we call it as offer. They have to offer us something which should be in writing, like this is the obligation that is set out. You have to build a 100-floor tower in that particular time duration. That should be there, which basically call as offer. And what is acceptance? After looking at the offer, the employer will basically send a letter of acceptance, which in the contract terminologies, we call it as LOA, letter of acceptance. There should be an acceptance. The employer makes clear intention that you're going to build the project, you would be my contractor, and we sign a contract. That is what we call it as acceptance. And now next, consideration. What is a consideration? A consideration is something like what sort of money are we talking about in building that particular project? If a contractor builds, he says, in my offer, I can build it for 100 million. That should be clearly stated in the contract. Why it is being so specified as a basic requirement of a contract? A charity cannot be a contract. Suppose if I say I'm going to pay 1 crore to MIIQS, so it is just a commitment. It is not a legally enforceable consideration. There is no binding agreement between myself and MIIQS. So a consideration, what sort of amount, what is the compensation that the contractor is going to get when the contract is being executed or completed. And next it comes to the capacity of parties. So what is the capacity of parties? Like, suppose if I'm working for a company, am I authorized to sign the contracts? No, I'm not authorized to sign the contract. The people who are authorized to sign the contract, like CEO, in various legislations, there are different requirements. Who would be the capacity of, what sort of capacities that we are talking about? Here in the country, in UAE, basically, there is a registration which is required in the Chamber of Commerce. When the parties who are having the capacity to sign the contract on behalf of a company, would have to be registered in that Chamber of Commerce. So what is the legality? Then it comes to the legality. What is legality? Legality is something like, the contract should have specific terminologies which can be done. You cannot have a contract for building a road from Earth to Moon, which is not practically possible, which cannot be legally enforced. So that sort of legal clarity should be there in any contract. Next. Yeah, and and during my course of presentation, I specified about the standard form of contract, like FIDIC 89 version, 99 version, NEC contract. Even when we go to FIDIC, there are different form of contract. FIDIC, we call it as colloquially Red Book. Red Book is suitable for the design where, designed by client. If the client has a design, the contractor is just building it. FIDIC form of contract, Red Book is more suitable. And if it is a turnkey project, FIDIC Silver Book is more suitable form of contract. These are some of the contracts where it's internationally used as a practice. Why do we use standard form of contract? While we are using the standard form of contracts, the risk allocation and identification between the parties becomes very clear. Like, these standard conditions has provisions like when the project has to start, the client has to provide the access. If the client, if there is a space, the client has to hand it over to the contractor before the commencement of the building. then it becomes the obligation of the client. Who, if the client doesn't hand over the plot or the pathway in a particular time, then it's likely to cause delay on the project. Who shares the risk of handing over the particular plot? It is the employer. So while using the standard form of contracts, these kind of risks are clearly identified, and people are, being the contractor, consultant, or client, they are well aware of what is written in the contract, and they have been using it for very long. And the conditions are in conditions. It's like a legal document where your the contracts would be like something like legal books where you have so many conditions connecting one on the other. So the interpretation for international contractors, consultants, and clients would be much easier. If you have an international project which requires that level of expertise, we cannot have a bespoke contract where the contractor will think, this contract is particularly very risky. So they will not be able to take such kind of risk. So when the risk and benefits are clearly identified and shared, it would be easy for the parties who are involved in the project. And as I was saying, like when there is a delay or extensions happen, delay can happen in so many other ways. Like in 2015, when the Chennai flooding happened, all the construction projects are majorly got delayed and disrupted. So any contract should have clear definition protocol when there is a delay come. What sort of protocols are we going to follow? Where is the notice? And all these sort of things has to be clearly demonstrated in the contract. That's why we are using standard form of contracts. Like when there is a change, in my experience, I'm yet to see a project which gets completed as in the initial design. The contract, employer designs something else, and when we complete the project, it's entirely a different thing. Like initially, I have a experience, like when initially the project had started, it was supposed to be a hotel, and when the course go on, due to the market conditions, the client felt that a hotel cannot generate that kind of revenue that the client is looking for. Then he converted all the complete building into a residential apartment, where you have to go through a major changes. Where the initial design, what you signed for to build in the contract, is no longer valid. There are changes, much more changes happened after that. So if such sort of changes happening, there should be a clear protocol on how we are going to address the change, and all these sort of things has to be in that contract. And most importantly, when construction project is most likely to have disputes, when there is a dispute, there has to be clear guidances. When you have a dispute, you have to appoint a dispute adjudication board, where that board is looking the pros and cons and the conditions, prevailing circumstances, and award the remedies to the party who are affected. And why we are using the standard form of contract, there are so many cases related to construction practice, is being heard in the court, all the international courts. Recently, you might have heard that Anil Ambani has been awarded, that Reliance Infrastructure Company has been awarded like 400 crore of 4,000 crore of remedy as a form of dispute resolution. So these sort of, why I'm saying is, when we are using the standard form of contract, the dispute resolution process become much more easy. And a clearly drafted contract is always a key to avoid dispute and related delays. As I was saying, like this is just a FIDIC 99 versions of contract. When the project, can you go to the next slide, please? Yeah. When the employer has completed a design, it's most likely you can use the FIDIC Red Book. When there is no design, it's for like a power plant kind of sort of building. We can use that yellow colored book, which is basically for plant design and build. When you don't have any clue of the facility, like you just have the requirement, I need a airport which can cater hundreds of Airbus 350 flight aircrafts in a time. you don't have any other requirement other than that. So in that case, you can go for that EPC turnkey projects. As you get into the industry, you will get more familiar with these sort of contracts. And when we move into the construction phase, what is the role of quantity surveyor during the phase of construction? Can you go to the next slide, please? Next slide, please. Yeah. Yeah. Next. Yeah. Contract administration. Am I audible? Yeah. Contract administration. Sorry, I was disrupted by a call. Contract administration. What does that mean? Interpretation of the conditions of contract and the obligations, what is being set out under the contract. Now, what does that mean? I'll tell you a practical example. Like when a rain particular, like let's take the scenario of flooding, Chennai flood. Are you entitled? Is the contractor entitled for extension of time? When obviously when you cannot work for certain durations in under the contract, the project obviously gets delayed. Is the contractor entitled for the extension of time? It's a complicated issue. How it we can get a clarity of interpret. We can get a clarity only when we interpret the conditions of contract correctly. This can be dealt in two different ways. FIDIC standard form of contracts has provision for what they call unforeseen physical conditions. Now, what is an unforeseen physical conditions? You're taking let's take a different scenario. You're going to build a project on a plot where you have taken the soil test, everything, and you have designed in accordance to that. Your building stability, everything you have considered. And when it comes to the construction phase, when you're actually digging for foundation, the site may not be the same. It has some different challenges where you found rock, which is more laborious to take out and which is more laborious to excavate. So in that circumstances, the project is most likely to go in delay. So how the employer and contractor is addressing those sort of delays, if that is an unforeseen physical conditions, obviously the contractor will get its entitlement, and the employer must, the client must provide some sort of relief, either in the time or in the cost. During the course, the contractor can complete the project in a delayed phase than what they have signed for. And what is commercial management cost control? During the construction phase, there are a lot of costs involved. Cost comes through plant and machineries. You're buying so many materials. You're planning for so many activities. You have many labor trades to pay. We have specialist subcontractors to pay. So we have the role of quantity surveyor is to control and manage all those costs, and we have to manage the cash flow of the project also. You are getting an advance payment from the project. What sort of advance payment we have remaining during the construction phase? What are the advance payment that you are going to pay? Like you have to pay 10 different subcontractors in an amount of 5 million. Then you have to manage the cash flow well in advance. And as I was saying, there are in many countries there are legal requirements such as bonds and insurances, which are you have to ensure that these are sufficient in place. I'll give a practical example. Like you have a tower crane erected in your project. That tower crane had a design issue and it started failing. So once the tower, the contractor has a store where they keep the material which are required for the construction project. After when the tower crane fails and it fell down on the store where the materials are being stored, who will be the responsible party to pay the damages? It's not just the store you have to rebuild. There are materials in it which you have to take in consideration. This will delay the project. Like if you have a very specialist equipment like an aircraft washer, which would take some sort of time in building, it's a bespoke equipment. You have to take in consideration who will pay the damages for that. While using the standard form of contract, these insurances and bonds are very clear. So the client and the employer, the contractor, they know very well who is having this responsibility of maintaining it and which insurance is covering that. Basically, to answer this question, there is an insurance called car insurance, which is like contractor's all risk insurance, which covers the contractor's activity during the construction and erection time. And as I was saying, like variation and changes do happen in the project. We have to administer those changes. And value engineering, I said, when the client has a budget of 100 million and the project, you feel that the project cost is going to cost more than, like say 120 million, how would you bring the cost down? You slightly modify the design of the project, like having some sort of specialist inputs where you can reduce the cost. For example, like saying, having a GRP waterproofing in a particular project might be very expensive. If the client doesn't have that kind of budget, for large facility, we are talking about large water tanks. So you can, have it as a cementitious waterproof, which is less in cost. But again, it comes with other challenges also. What is the durability of the product that we are talking about? So this is the stage of value engineering. So you have to take all this in consideration. It's basically, trying to reduce the construction cost by having the same value, quality of the building. And basically, the most important role of a quantity surveyor is managing the claims. Claims, what does claims mean? When there is a time delay happen, the contractor is more or less looking for a money compensation. Every month the contractor runs its operation in a site. It is associated with the cost. He has to pay the salaries. He has to pay for the facilities that he's having at site, like his office, and for the plant and machinery, he has to pay the rent, or for the fuel, and for the insurances, for the bonds. If you have to extend it for a month, it comes with a cost. So this basically we call it as claim. Claim, it generally a party, if the delay is from the employer side, the employer didn't provide the design what it's supposed to provide. Like a design was supposed to be provided to me on 15th of September. The client did not provide the design so far for a 17th floor of a building. Without completing the 17th floor, I cannot go for 18th floor. So if the drawing is received a month late, then it is an employer's delay. So the employer has to compensate the contractor for having that delay. Again, it's not just the payment happens once the construction complete. For a project which runs for 5 years or 6 years, you have to have interim payments. Like every month, the contractor should get paid. The role of quantity surveyor is to facilitate the valuation of the project and work happen, and we have to arrange for the issuance of payment certificates, and we have to ensure that if you are working for a contractor, you have to ensure that your company is getting paid on time. And obviously, construction projects has a factor of disputes. All projects has a dispute. When there is a dispute comes, we must be in a position to help our management, or dispute resolution happens at a very high level. There are some arbitrators who are working for the company, and some independent arbitrators will be appointed on case-to-case basis. The role of quantity surveyor is to assist them by providing whatever the data you have during the construction, because you are very well aware of what is happening at the ground. So let me go to the next slide, please, madam. Yeah, operational phase. As I was saying, what is an operational phase? When the construction complete, that is not the end of the contract. All the standard form of contracts has a provision of defects notification period, which basically runs from 12 months to 24 months. When you have some equipment installed which is not functioning properly, which is malfunctioning, the contractor has an obligation to correct. You have to replace or repair that particular plant. Suppose, like say, if a fire pump is not working in a building, the contractor within that duration of 1 year or 2 years, again it depends on the contract, has to come and replace the pump which is not functioning properly in accordance with the requirement. And again, when you're settling the final account is always a lengthier and big process, which leads to so much disputes and things. So a role of quantity surveyor is to ensure that the final account is settled and the guarantees and the bonds and insurances, whatever we have provided for the contractor, for the employer, we got it back. Yeah. And can we go on to the next slide? And what are the requirements if you want to become a professional quantity surveyor? As unfortunately, our curriculum has no specific courses for quantity surveying. No, we all learn it by experience, or we all learn it, acquiring some added memberships, such sort of things. In the Western world, a quantity surveyor is basically having a degree of BSc in quantity surveying, or it's we would say the RICS, Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyor, accredited degree. In India, none of the colleges are affiliated or accredited with the RICS facility. I could see one college which is recently coming up. It's not a promotion for that particular university or college, but just for the sake of sharing the knowledge, there is a university called Amity University. They provide some basic courses for quantity surveying. Through that, you can acquire the membership of RICS. RICS is basically like membership of Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, where you will get the designation to use chartered quantity surveyor, which is more or less like a chartered accountant. The amount of work which are required to have a CA, it's almost similar to it. If you have to get an RICS, you have to work something similar to it, where you have to be expert in all the key area what we were discussing since from the morning. If you don't have time, or you don't have thought process to go into the RICS accredited degree, there are some other routes, like by experience you can apply for the memberships, and you can sit for the there are some competencies where you have to give your write-ups, and you have to present a case study to the panel. Then they will award you the membership of RICS. As I did the same route of experience. They call it as experience route. There is another pathway in obtaining these memberships or becoming a professional QS. You can study MSc Commercial Management and Quantity Surveying, where most of the foreign universities like Robert Gordon University, University of College Estate Management, UK, they all are facilitating this course. Now, after having the RICS or Australian Institute, both of these memberships are very equivalent. So after having this RICS, if you want to pursue further, you can have some other membership like member of chartered arbitrator, where you will be have the capacity to sit in arbitration seats for a bigger disputes and complex disputes. And you can also pursue LLM, which is like basically a construction law course. And these are other verticals across available for civil engineers as a profession. You can be, if you want to be a designer, you have to have you can have a specialization in structural engineering, or there are some specific courses for highway design, and you might the academicians are very aware of. You can talk to your faculties, and they might be able to guide you. And I would like to add one more thing, like now the industry is changing a lot. For earlier, it used to be highway engineering and design is the only course for infrastructure projects. Now there are more courses like transport planning, which is very famous in the Western world. So if students are interested, they can also take up as their higher studies, and it has a very wide opening. It has a large capacity. And considering the time, I think I'm very sorry, I have run a little more than what it should have been. And I would like to add some more, if you allow me for another minute, I would like to add some more details to the students. Am I okay? Is it okay?
Yes, you can proceed.
Yeah. The thing which I wanted to tell you is the COVID scenario. The COVID conditions and climate has disrupted almost all of the standard practices. How you are getting a job and how you are changing a job. it has almost disrupted everything. The governments are now struggling to fund financially for infrastructure projects, and most of the governments, they are thinking if we can divert the funds to a different works like healthcare works or some other industry, which immediately can generate some revenues. Governments are more focused, they are more focusing more on that. Now the infrastructure projects and real estate projects are getting stalled. Even the experienced professionals, we are struggling to be in the market. So I would request students to have, be positive and keep whatever you are doing. I know it's a challenging period for all of us. Suppose if you are not placed in a company, or if you don't get what you are looking for as your next step in the life, stay focused. And there is an option for higher studies. You can pursue higher studies. We can do MSCs in foreign universities, which will open up your opportunities in a wider view. And stay positive. That's the only key where we can all survive. So if you have any questions, you can write back to me, or if we have time, I can answer your questions. Otherwise, we are good to go. And I would like to thank Madam Lydia for organizing such wonderful meeting. And all the students, you have been a wonderful audience today. And this makes me, this made my day today. So thank you.
Thank you, Shriram. Now, let me take time to propose vote of thanks.
Yep.
So, good afternoon, everybody. We had an eventful day and take the honor of proposing the vote of thanks on this occasion. First of all, I wish to thank Engineer Shriram Ramanan for accepting our invitation, for being the chief guest and understanding students. Thank you for your valuable input, and thank you for spending your time with us, sir. So I extend my thanks to our principal, Dr. L. Ganeshan, for his support and guidance in arranging this function. I wholeheartedly thank our head of the department, Mr. S. Dharmar, and other faculty members of Civil Department for your valuable suggestions and help. We look forward for the same in the coming years too. So finally, a big thanks to all the students of Civil Department. We hope you benefited from today's function. I wish you all success. Once again, I thank everyone who are present here. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Yes. Students, you may leave the link. Thank you, Shriram, sir.
It's my pleasure.
Yes.
No, it's a great event, and you have organized it very well. So I cannot agree more. I have to thank you personally, and yes.
Okay, I think we can leave the link.
So are we good to go? Can I
Yes,
leave?
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Thanks for your time, and I know I've taken a bit more time, so my sincere apologies for that. And thanks. It's been a wonderful day for me. Thank you.
It's not like that. You have finished on time. No problem.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you.